Graham is from Newcastle University. He's come over and visited us a few times now. He helped us with a numbers workshop a good few years ago. And I saw a version of the talk he's about to give in Dundee, Kettle in September last year. I think you had us all in the palm of your hand, but your talk was only 15 minutes long and we wanted more. So hopefully now you can deliver more. Thanks a million, Chris.
Thank you very much for the invite, Anthony. It's great to be here. And thank you for your expert scheduling. That by putting Emma in front of me, I have covered all of the motivation for doing the sort of things that we're doing here. So that's really quite helpful. Like Emma, my slides are web-based. That's really what this is all about. And there is a link there, which you probably don't need at the moment, but I'll share later when we get to some activities that you can try either during this session or in your own time. So yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm a lecturer at Newcastle University. I lead our digital learning team. So some of you will know my colleague, Chriun Perfect. We're actually a growing team. We were 4 when I came to Dublin on Thursday, and we're now 5. So we're growing all the time. We've got another one coming on in a few weeks. So it's really doing quite well. I'll talk a bit about our team in a second. So my teaching, I teach mathematical programming. I teach programming to math students and physics students as well. And so I have my real interest is in that teaching, and that's really a lot of the motivation behind the stuff I'm doing here was about how we can go about teaching programming to math students who really don't want to be necessarily learning programming because it's not what they signed up for. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit about how a little bit about one of the open source tools we're developing in Newcastle. It's going to be a little bit about how I'm using that in my teaching. So our digital learning team, you probably know us best from the Numbers D assessment system, if you know us at all. We have users here, I think, in UCD. There's people from Cork somewhere. Yeah, and various other places. So Numbers is quite widely used. I'm not going to try and do the voice, but you know that guy on the start of the movies who's like, you know, from the creators of. We've been developing a different open source tool called Chirun, and I'm going to be talking quite a bit about that in this talk. And it's doing quite similar things, I think, to what Emma is doing. What I'd really like to do is, well, yes, I'd like to raise awareness of our tools in Newcastle. It is definitely not a sales pitch. Those who know our numbers team will know we don't do that sort of thing. What I would like to do really is to give you a different perspective, maybe from the perspective we got from Emma, about moving away from those traditional formats, the handwritten, the PDF, to web-based learning material. So I am not an expert in accessibility, certainly not like we just had with Emma here, certainly not the most expertise in our team either. But I am really interested in the topic. I'm trialing out here, so I'm trialing out the Atkinson hyperlegible font for my slides for the first time. It's something that we're thinking of rolling into our output in Chriun, and it's just like, well, why not? That's been found by the Braille Institute to be the most legible text for low vision users, so why don't we just choose that instead of choosing Arial or whatever I've had previously. So great. So I have an interest, but I'm definitely not an expert. I'm really interested in how students learn and in trying to make my materials flexible as possible, because I have students who are trying to learn programming. They come from different backgrounds, and I just want to reduce as many barriers as possible. And there are more barriers when you come to teaching languages like that, as I'll talk about later. So this is going to be really about offering flexible learning materials, but also enriching learning materials. So we saw some of this, we saw on Emma's slides there, we saw Desmos, and we saw other tools, right? And they were right there on the slide, okay? Emma didn't have to go and log into Desmos to find that graph and then show you it. It was right there in the slide, okay? And that's a bit where I'm coming from, that by moving to a web-based format, because it was web-based, Emma could just embed it in there. We can just do things better. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about how I've used that in programming to just keep everything a bit together. Whereas, previous year, on the colleagues I have, you'll have some lecture slides here and some practice there and some resources in the reading list, just sort of pulling everything together in a nice way. So, was that the next slide? Let's get past it. Yeah, so Emma has kindly covered all of this, I think. We, as a school, typically use LaTeX to generate PDFs. We have some who use handwritten, and I don't have time and won't bother going into the issues there. But really, most of our users most of our academics use LaTeX. And this is not great for a variety of reasons, as has previously been covered. Not great for a student who wants to use text-to-speech software or reflow their content on a mobile. That was the first thing that got me onto this stuff, was students scrolling on their mobile in a PDF. Change the background color, the font size, use a keyboard tab to navigate through the keyboard, and probably lots of other reasons that I can't think of, and maybe you can, or maybe even we don't think of, but students come across. So LaTeX is not great, and as Emma kindly pointed out, we have this sort of standard, if you like, for maths on the web, which is MathJax, and I don't need to bother showing you. It has that sort of accessibility menu and compatibility with screen readers and assistive software. So this is the gold standard, if you like. This is what we want to produce. So as I've said, this is not intended to be a sales pitch for our tool Chriun. It is one of a number of different tools that can convert LaTeX maths into an accessible web-based format. And we've heard about some of that already. There's the list of LWarp, Bookdown, or Markdown itself, though I don't think it will let you do MathJax. There are other tools. And actually, virtual learning environments are getting better. So we use Canvas, and Canvas actually, in Canvas pages, it fully supports LaTeX maths in display mode and inline mode. It's come a long way, actually. But I think some of the other VLEs are still behind, where you have to enter it as a graphical interface. Canvas just lets you put the maths right in the text. If people know this stuff, just between dollars, and it will present it as MathJax equations. So that's quite nice. So really, there are lots of different tools that do this, and more than anything, I'd really just want to encourage you to think about trying something different. So go away and try the tools that Emma has shared with you, or try our tool out. So Chirun is an open source tool that we developed at Newcastle. It's developed by our digital learning team. And it aims to convert documents that are either in LaTeX or Markdown into a web-based, accessible, responsive format, plus a PDF, and sometimes other things. So I'll talk about my programming. It can produce Jupyter notebooks as an alternative format. And probably one of its key features is that it can integrate with a virtual learning environment through an LTI tool, or these have different names in different environments. So external tool, they call it in Canvas. It's basically, LTI is the Learning Tools Interoperability. It's the protocol with which a VLE connects to a third-party tool and can talk to it. So grant access and receive marks and that sort of thing. It's how tools like Numbers or Stack work. So that was the idea. Now, we had this vision. The vision that we had was that a lecturer, one of our colleagues, should be able to take their notes and upload it to the tool, and it should just work. Okay, and as Emma has pointed out, it's never quite that simple, but that was the mission goal that we set out with. This was motivated actually quite a few years ago we had and still have actually a quite severely disabled student moving through our maths degree at a slow but steady pace. And they had very specific requirements for course material. They needed web-based notes with a specific background, a specific font size, line spacing, all of these different things. And what we had was LaTeX documents and or a pile of handwritten notes, and we needed to go from one to the other. And so it started off a little bit like Emma described, just hand trying to sort things out, one file and just try and get it done. But actually this is because the student has moved through our degree, we've actually had to do this for almost every module or every core module that we have, so we needed a better way. So that's where the sort of the origin story of the software. And we needed something that really we had full control over. So they had a full suite of assistive technology, and we needed to make sure that what we were doing was super compatible and optimized for the students' needs. It's a quote from the student here, who is certainly very appreciative of having this format rather than PDFs. And they use screen readers and other tools to navigate through the content. So what we found is, and many of you I think will share the same ethos, that if we're going to have material that can be modified to suit your needs and flexible in delivery, then why not make it available for all students? Okay, if it's good for this one student, why not give it to everybody? And so some of our modules, quite a few now actually, more. I wrote some in when was that? Anthony, last summer. Some. I would change that to many now actually. So many of our modules are using Chriun as the primary format for their lecture course. So they don't have like a PDF of their lecture and then an accessible version for students who need it. They're actually using the accessible version as the primary source. And that's great to see. And a lot of that has happened without us knowing. So they've used the tool, this original intention, they've used the tool, and they just have used it. And they didn't get in touch to say, oh, it doesn't work. They've just gone on. So that's good to see. We have had others, of course, it's not fully positive. We've had others who tried to use it, and it bombs, as described earlier. So this is really about letting students choose the format that suits their learning style. So choose, whatever it is that fits them best. So this is, I have here, so these are these exact slides in different formats here. We can do whatever we want with that, to get it how we need to read it. And it has a PDF output and stuff like that. I need to change that back to pastel, otherwise, and reset those. Otherwise, when I load another page, it'll go mad. One of the things I really want to talk about is how we can use that to do something just better. Okay, so to rather than have our learning resources all over the place, have them right here on our slides. So I must admit, I have a vested interest in this. I need to go and get on a plane. I'm a bit of a nervous flyer, so I was a bit concerned about the wind speed outside at the moment. So I thought I'm going to embed something in my slides. What shall I embed that's useful to mathematicians? Screw it, we'll put the weather forecast in. So that is the current weather forecast. So if you're talking about the weather, if this was your subject, then rather than have that link away or go and find this resource to see what the weather is, it's just right there. Okay, and you can interact with it and whatever. What's it doing? Radar. Oh, that's looking all right. Okay, we need to make a sharp exit. Yeah. So so that's a bit of a joke, but that didn't very well. But if you're using something here, so this is a PhET simulation. If this is part of your teaching and you want to, I reckon that's 250 grams. No, it's not. You know, you have an applet that you want to describe. Well, you know, no need to go across to another link or you know, send the students elsewhere. Why not get it up there? So in programming, what I was sick of doing was having a set of slides and then flipping to R or Python or MATLAB and then flipping back again and then flipping back. And the students must have been getting a headache because I kept flipping between these windows. So rather than doing that, what I'm trying to do is just embed that stuff in slides. So a little bit more about Chriun. So one of the things it does is it separates the learning material from the presentation, so from the theme. And that's really useful, actually. So we have the back image there is actually our math support website. And it's built precisely in the theme that the rest of our student support website is built in. So our student support website does things like you know, other academic skills, reading skills, writing, that sort of thing. And what they wanted was something that, you know, matched in look, so it matches. But that same content, so whatever that is, mechanics, that's our student support website. It has some content on mechanics. But if a lecturer in mechanics just wanted to take that page and put it inside their VLE course, inside their Canvas course for us, then they can do that. And they can do that in the style of Canvas, the normal style, if you like. So just a default white or whatever. So it's separating the content from the theme, and that's really useful. So we do the same with our transition material. We have a website. It's all glossy and looks really cool. And the students get it, and they can enjoy sort of browsing through it before they come to Newcastle. But when they come here, if we want to add some of that to our virtual learning environment, again, we can make sure that fits in real nice. So in a bit, if we have time, we'll try out Chriun. I've got a QR code in a bit. I'll skip past this for the moment. So we have a public upload tool. So the upload, no, I'll open it. The public upload tool just lets you upload a LaTeX document or a Markdown file or a zip folder with images and all of those things. You hit upload and it gives you back the HTML code and everything you need as a zip, I think. So we'll try this in a bit because I've got a sample file. So that's available. I'll share the link in a bit. It's available just to try out and use for anybody. Got lost. Am I there? No. Am I there? I'm there. So it also gives you a preview. So it stores the preview for 24 hours, so you can see exactly how it will look as a student. Now that's all great, but there is a challenge, and you see my question from Emma. I was interested to find out how they got over this at Bath. So this can be done by various tools. You can get this HTML output, but then what do you do with it? Well, you could upload it to a website, a web server, if that's something you can do. You could try and upload it into your files area, and it sounds like that works very well in Moodle. That sounds much better than the other VLEs. You can do this. I do know you can do this in Canvas, and I know you can do it in Blackboard. So I know of people who've used our generated content and therefore any other HTML and used those in those VLEs. Now you're Brightspace, aren't you? I haven't got a clue, sorry. But typically that's not unusual for a virtual learning environment to have a files space associated with a course that you can just chuck stuff in and then link to. That's not unusual. So that is an option. What we wanted to do was to try and make that easier. So what we really wanted to do was for our lecturers just to have that upload form, drop their file in, and then it just works. Okay, and then that's it. They just walk away. And that's what our LTI tool does. So I probably won't show you because I probably won't have time, but this is Canvas presented on the screen there, and on the left is the teacher view of the Chriun tool. So they create a new Chriun item in their course, and then they just drop their source file in and they upload. And fingers crossed that builds. And if it does, that's it. The student goes in, they see the output. Okay, they have to make sure it's published, obviously. And the student sees the output in the other screen. You'll see it has a PDF button at the top. It's got the settings to change various things. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for people, try and remove barriers for colleagues who aren't expertise in dealing with HTML files and moving things around. So that's our LTI tool. Now, it is very much under construction, so when you try it in a bit, I have no doubt that you'll get some of the frustration of LaTeX giving you weird messages. We saw a little bit of that before. That sort of thing does happen. And it was in active development, and then it got a bit stale last summer. We had a change in personnel. My colleague, George Stagg, who's doing a lot of work on this, left our team. But it's actually recently been taken up by Chriun. And that's had lots of benefits. Chriun is very clued up in accessibility, and he's just generally a smart guy. We are revisiting, some of the features that we have to look again at the accessibility standards. So things like the color picker, which currently is, fixed groups, letting students pick whatever color would work for them, contrast checker, that sort of thing. Revisiting the sort of structure of documents to make sure that they're all okay. And then the main thing that he's been working on is a new LTI tool. And there are a few things that we would like to add to make things easier. So one is to be able to edit documents sort of on the fly in the browser, so that colleagues don't have to worry about sort of working on, making a change elsewhere. They can make it in the browser and recompile. A bit like Overleaf, but probably not quite as glossy. To make it easier to make sort of like a full module of material, and then to embed just one section of that. So you could have like a full module built in the tool, but then in various points in your course, just link to a page. And we're considering, I'm being careful with my words here, we're considering whether what barriers we have to hosting this as a public LTI tool. So offering this as something that other institutions could install without having to worry about hosting. So we would host the content and database and such. So we're looking at that to see what barriers there are in terms of resources and also in terms of data protection. So we're looking at that in a minute. So hold fire, no promises, but there's something that's on the radar here. How am I doing for time? Okay, I don't want to spend too long here. So at Dundee, Anthony, as Anthony mentioned, I gave a very similar talk. I went off on a tangent pretty much about programming, my programming modules. So we teach Python and R at Newcastle, and programming sort of embedded into our modules, but they have training at stage 1 and 2 on things like computational statistics and numerical methods. And we have a sort of structure of a 1-hour lecture followed by a 2-hour practical. And originally we had paper-based handouts for our content where students would work through. And the material has evolved quite significantly over the past few years. So the problem with the paper-based handouts were, one, they were not great for everyone. I mean, for a start, we'd only printed them. They weren't even available as a document you could load online. The main issue, though, was the exercises. And so we had these documents where students would work through, they'd get to an exercise, and then they would inevitably get stuck because they hadn't read, usually. Or because programming is just hard. And this was a challenge. So our exercise would, like create a function that does something, or whatever that question might be. And we used to, in the practicals, get a lot of hands up, I'm stuck, did you read this kindly? Did you read this? Or, why didn't you try that? We really wanted to do something where the students were more self-sufficient. And particularly this coincided with the COVID pandemic. So by using Chirun, we'll jump past that slide, I'll come back to it. By using these Chirun-based material, what we were able to do is embed exercises right inside the handouts to let students check how they were getting on as they were working through the material. And these are numbers-based exercises, so they will give immediate feedback. They will try to offer hints to students where they are struggling, so they made an obvious mistake. It will say to you, why don't you try this? It has that stuff about, for people familiar with numbers, being able to reveal steps to scaffold the question down if they're finding it too difficult or if they need a hint. And this really transformed our handouts quite dramatically. I was going to talk briefly about formats. So I mentioned earlier on, we were also able to generate a Jupyter notebook output from Chriun. That became super important last year. We had a couple of students who struggled with scrolling through web pages, struggled with interacting. And what they really needed was, for people familiar with Jupyter, these cells where you can just hit a button and it just runs you through the content. So being able to offer that as an extra without any more work from me, it's just another output of of the tool, it was a real bonus. I was just going to show you one of the exercises there. I'm trying not to go off on a tangent. Anyone know Python? Anyone know R? Yeah, okay, so if you know R, then you do this sort of thing, right? And if you know Python, you'll know that that's wrong. So numbers can offer sort of feedback on, so it's really marking the code here. It's using what's called pyodide to mark code inside the browser to run unit tests. So this has spotted the fact that I have forgotten that indexing of lists starts at 0 in Python and not 1. And it will catch other things as well. So it will catch, I've asked the student to create something called X, and if I don't do that, it will tell me, yeah, I need to create something called X. And if I'm really struggling, I can get a hint on what I'm doing. So that's been really transformative for our practicals. And this can also happen in the browser. So again, that stuff about not going out to the third-party software. So I don't need to show you that bit of Python. I don't need any software here. I don't need to go and split to another screen. I can just run it right there. And the code, talk about it, and move on. Okay. Student feedback is positive. You can read that in your own time. I just want to show you some activities. So how am I doing for time? I've got 5 minutes, so I might even show you one. So my slides, or if you go to the QR code there, are all available online. You will find, so online you'll find, I've added a second page. So like I say, this is Chriun generated content, so you can have a look at the output. It shouldn't be that slow, should it? Oh, that's worked that time. So when you go to that URL, you'll find, actually you can find some of my older talks as well. You will be able to have a look at, so that's the slides that you've just seen in just a web-based format. It's responsive, so you can change size and see it reflow. You can download the PDF version as well. But on that website, you'll see there's a Have a Go activities page. I've just provided a few links there. So there's a LaTeX sample. There's a Markdown sample. So Markdown, as Emma said, is a bit more forgiving when you're writing content, and you can include that sort of accessible maths inside it. But it also opens up some of these embedding opportunities. So that sample actually has some runnable code, some numbers exercises, and that sort of thing in it. So have a go at that if you like. So actually, we'll do that. No, I'll do the LaTeX one. Don't know where I'm going to put it. I'll put it there. It's in my that's fine. So if you're having a go at that public tool, you can just download and then drop the file on. So Chriun will then do its thing, which if you've used LaTeX before, might take a while. And does spit out random errors. If you have a package wrong, as Emma suggested, it's not great at giving you useful information about how to solve it. So the public tool will give you a preview of the output. That is going to expire tonight. Tonight at 9:25. So this is really just so I can preview what's going on here, so I can see how it looks. You can see how the PDF looks. I can mess around with some of the options. And then it provides a download button. So the download button, that will give you a zip file, I expect. And that's the sort of thing that you could then upload to your VLE, okay? So in Canvas, for us, in our VLE, we have this similar interface, except that when the content is uploaded, it's just then live for the student. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Glad you got to extend on the Dundee talk.
Yeah.
Any questions for Chris or comments?
Yeah, just curious, how much of this is the same sort of infrastructure that some commercial providers offer in the online programming learning space, like DataCamp, I'm thinking, similar kind of computational learning?
Yeah. So in terms of the learning material, I think it is far, quite close. The new programming assessment, I think, is on a par with anything I've seen, certainly compared to something like NB Grader, which is widely used for Python. The immediate feedback and catching of errors that it can do, I think, is level above. The one thing for us at Newcastle about that sort of format is that it's so familiar with students, that we're not having to call upon a third-party tool, Jupyter Notebook server or whatever, to send students off to. We're keeping everything very familiar to students. It's just removing barriers. So yeah, it's similar. I mean, behind the scenes, we are for academics trying to make our way. So we don't have the resourcing of commercial operations, but we're doing all right though. We're growing, and we're very appreciated by university. So we get a lot of institution support. So that's good.
Okay, I think there was a comment on the Zoom. Yeah, Lillian Joy, she said, with Blackboard Ultra, there's a problem allowing HTML content run if you're an instructor.
Yeah, that absolutely wouldn't surprise me. So, I mean, I should say we primarily use our LTI tool for presenting this content. And where we have had interest in other institutions, they've been installing it as well. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that I don't think that VLEs were designed for this sort of thing. Really, I think it's a nice thing to do, but I don't think these features, these files areas, were intended to sort of host websites. Really.
Okay, we might let Chris go then, because we have 2 short talks to finish the day with. So we'll just thank Chris again. Thanks.